YPARD's Hangouts on Air, where we're talking about different skills for YPARD members. Today I'm super excited to introduce you to, and I'm going to hopefully get her name pronounced right, Jolan van Herwaarden. Hopefully that was right, Jolan?
That's absolutely fine.
Fantastic. Who's kindly joining us from the Resource Alliance, which is a big fundraising NGO that helps organisations to learn how to fundraise, and also conducts a conference each year, which Jolan will tell us much more about. Jolan's had a lot of experience in the NGO sector. She's been working for 20 years in AIDS activism and volunteering, and was organising large fundraising events on national level in the Netherlands, where she's from, and since then has moved into different fundraising and partnership roles, both for the Resource Alliance and for other networks, which I'm sure she'll tell us a bit about. So Jolan has some great tips for us to share with us today on fundraising skills. She's really keen to hear from you guys, and we'll be taking your questions throughout today, and I'll be relaying them to Jolan throughout the webinar. So without further ado, I will hand over to Jolan to get us started. Thank you so much, Jolan.
Thank you, Michelle. Wonderful. I'm also very excited, and I'm so delighted to be talking to you via this webinar to wherever you are. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and probably even good night. We're going to talk about the principles of fundraising, but before we do that, I thought let's do a little bit of introduction. While I'm talking and explain a bit about my background and myself, would you mind just typing in the chat box your name and your country, so I have an idea of who you are? It helps me. Anyway, my name is Jolan van Herwaarden. Jolan is just fine. I know it's a long surname. I started out as a fundraiser about 20 years ago when HIV and AIDS in Amsterdam was happening, and nobody knew what was happening, but people got ill and died, and we did not know. There was a lot of panic and a lot of trauma, including myself. And one day I just knocked on the door of the AIDS funds and said, "Could I be a volunteer?" And they said, "Come on in." And from that moment I started organizing events. World AIDS Day, Walk for Life, Swim for Life, you name it. I loved it because I could do something with the passion I had to fight this bloody virus, do something to overcome my grief for my friends, and do something to make the world a better place so nobody had to suffer like my friends had. So that was an important part of my life, and sometimes I tell people I grew up as a fundraiser that way. From the AIDS funds, I've done that for a long time. I moved on to a women's rights organization called Mama Cash. And I've learned to step up and be more of a senior and a team manager, which was a challenge, because if you learn things from scratch, sometimes you just have to then step up and start managing things from a distance and trust people to do their bit. So from then I worked for different international development agencies, health and human rights agencies. I've lived both in the Netherlands and in the United Kingdom, and that helped me to understand more of an international funding environment, because at the end, in the United Kingdom I worked for the International HIV and AIDS Alliance. And we got a lot of institutional money from governments, for instance. That was a whole new game in fundraising I'd never experienced. Anyway, since then I've worked for different organizations. HIV and AIDS, human rights has always been my thing, but also I've worked for environmental agencies. Currently, I work sometimes with the Resource Alliance. The Resource Alliance is also a network, just like YPARD is. It's a network of fundraisers and fundraising organizations and all the consultants and agencies around it. They organize a big conference to gather and capture all that information and knowledge and share it. It happens coincidentally in Holland every year in October. It's called the IFC, International Fundraising Congress. And they organize local fundraising conferences too. So there is one in Africa, one in Asia, one in Latin America. So maybe there's one locally. Another thing I've done for the Resource Alliance you might find interesting is wrote the School of Fundraising. It's basically what we're going to do the next 90 minutes, but then over 2-3 days, and it includes a bit more homework and a bit more research, but then you have a really good grasp of what fundraising is. I do that personally. I'll travel out to whatever country is necessary, and I do that with a local trainer. So there's always an international trainer and a local trainer. That School of Fundraising could also be a train-the-trainer program. So we can train people in country to do the same. The Resource Alliance website is full of good tips, ideas, and links. So please go there. It's a really good one. So Michelle, have we got any names and countries yet?
We do. We've got people from all over the world. We've got Alessia from Belgium, Dustin and Susan in Germany, who are working in Madagascar's education sector. We've got M. Dowsing from London, Martina from Switzerland, Juliet and Courtney from Nairobi in Kenya. We've got Patrick, who didn't say where he was from, Machteld in Netherlands. Patrick said he was from South Africa. We've got a couple of people from Nepal, Madan, Bishnu, and someone who's called AgriYouth Nepal. Patrick's actually from the DRC, but he's living in South Africa. So spread from all over.
Wow, thank you so much. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. I feel as if I'm talking to the world. So thank you for joining. That's absolutely magical. So you've discovered the chat box now. That is a place where you can leave messages, questions, ideas. People will see it. I will not see it, but Michelle is going to help me and support me along the way. So that will be very good. And she will gather all that stuff. The whole webinar will be 5 modules. And after every module, there is time for questions and answers. So just so you know. There was a little survey. I don't know if you filled it in, but just to let you know who is sort of on this webinar. Half of the people who said they would join said, I've never fundraised. I have no idea what it is. But 3/4 of you said it was very hard. So that's interesting. And I hope after the webinar you feel a little different about that, because I think it's also fun. Less than half said, but less than half, so that was about 48%, said we're starting from scratch, and that's what I'll take on board. And every time we'll discuss a fundraising technique, I will explain how that would work if you're starting from scratch, what you can do with that. A few of you said, I'm struggling with personal skills, and indeed that is, I see, that is something you become a fundraiser. I meant when I said I grew up as a fundraiser at the AIDS Fonds 20 years ago, I really did. I had to learn how to ask for money, I had to learn how to plan it, and I had to learn how the world of doing good looked like. 3/4 of you depend on donors for your income, but really that doesn't mean much, because if you're an NGO, you might have government money and that might be your income, but you might want to diversify your funding. So in the future, you might have more income from different income streams. Right. A few rules around the whole webinar. Leave the questions in the chat box. Michelle will gather all the questions after each module. There'll be 5 of them. I'll explain that later. You'll learn something new, I'm sure of it. You might learn something you knew already but forgot all about it, so that'll be good. And you might learn things you do not need now. It always happens like that, and then in 5 years' time you're working somewhere else, or your organization has evolved and you think, yeah, I remember that one. And also it's recorded on YouTube, so if in 5 years' time you want to see what I said or what the link was or what the suggestion was, you can still hopefully look at YouTube. So this webinar is in 5 parts, and I'm going to see if my screen share works, because then I can right, can you all see my screen? I hope you do. So these are the 5 modules.
We can't see it, unfortunately, Joanne. It's just black.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Do you want to?
Okay, we'll go out of this one then. Okay. It's sorry, the screen is totally black now, Michelle?
Yeah, for some weird reason. Oh no, you've come back.
I've come back. Okay, we'll do it without the slides then. I'm sorry. The slides will be available later, but they're not that many anyway, because we needed to flip between the 2. So the webinar will be in 5 parts. First, we'll talk about fundraising. What really is it and what isn't it? We'll talk a little bit about the world of fundraising and how that's organized nationally, internationally, and how societies work with or without fundraisers. The second one will be research. Research really is 70–80% of all the work you do in fundraising. So finding the right donors, setting up your organization that makes it work really well, and be a fundraising organization, that will take time. So researching donors and getting ready is the second module. Then we're going to talk about, there follow 2 modules about fundraising itself, so the fundraising techniques. That will be divided in 2 modules. One is called fundraising from the few and fundraising from the many. And what I mean by that is fundraising from the many is what generally we call direct marketing. That means a lot of people and small amounts. So that might be people who give you every month $5, €5, 5 rupees. So a small amount from a large amount of people. So that's fundraising from the many. You can do that many ways, as you can understand. It could be direct mail, it could be online, it could be anything. But small amounts from a large group of people. And then the next module is fundraising from the few, and that's large donors, major donors we usually call them. That could be wealthy individuals, but it could also be companies, it could be an institution, the multilaterals, the bilaterals, the governments. That's like institutional funding. And the last one is companies. And then we have the last module is called strategy, because you need to think of this as a strategic thing and plan it, preferably in 5 years, but you can do it in 3 years. How to do that, where to start, how to continue, and how to make sure that it's a continuing circle that generates more and more income. We'll talk about that in module number 5. Okay, very good. So let's start with the module number 1. Let's start about fundraising and what really is it. Now, like I said, I came into fundraising just because I had a strong drive and passion to do something to fight the virus of HIV. But I had no idea what fundraising was. I just knew it needed a lot of money. My director at the time, when we said the end of year, so what are we going to do next year and how much money should we raise? He was running out of the door and he said, as much as possible. At the time, that was absolutely right. But really, it helps if you can make a plan and make a real good strategy to make it happen. So fundraising really is marketing. That's what they say. When I, halfway my career, decided maybe I need a real profession, maybe I need to educate myself, I studied marketing and communications because I thought, okay, then I'll become a real fundraiser. After all, nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, Mummy, I want to be a fundraiser. You might say, I want to be a butcher or a gardener, but you don't say I'm a fundraiser. Usually fundraisers become fundraisers just because there's a need, there's a drive, and it takes a special kind of person, really. A bit like you and me, really. Sometimes people call fundraising resource mobilization. Mobilizing the resources you have. It usually captures a little bit more than just funds raising. So funds raising is usually talking about money. Resource mobilization could also be gifts in kind, asking people to do something for you as a volunteer, companies who put their old computers in front of you and as a gift. So resource mobilization is usually used for the whole spectrum of gathering resources. I talk during this webinar about fundraising as if it is resource mobilization because it's such a long word. And after all, most people call it fundraising. Sometimes people say fundraising, oh, it's getting money in the bank. I don't think of it that way. I don't think of it that way at all. I think that in the world there is so much money, there is so much wealth and richnesses. It's just about sort of dividing it a little bit more fairer. So fundraising is not getting money in the bank. Fundraising is having a dream and making sure that dream comes true. Because that needs money, but that's not really the point of it. The point of it is that you make a dream come true. The point is that you make the world a better place, and that needs money, unfortunately. Just to show you my T-shirt, I thought you'd like it. See. It's also a feeling. If you never ever have enough, then you need a lot. Sometimes you have enough. But to have enough, you need to have a dream too. Right. There are 6 golden gifts in fundraising. And unfortunately, we can't do the screen share because I had a wonderful PowerPoint about it. There are 6 golden gifts. We'll talk about that all during the webinar. But these 6 golden gifts, if you take anything away from this webinar, please remember them. 6 golden gifts. First of all, it is money. People can give you money to make something happen. That is necessary. It's the fuel for a dream, like I said. But it could also be goods, things you need, a vehicle to get to the people, to the fields, to whatever you need. It could be a service. Sometimes people can give you the knowledge they install your IT, so you can really make sure that you can use the computer very well, or it could be they fix your vehicle. It could be a service they do to you. That's a gift. It could be time, and that's volunteering. Now, as you know, in the world, people in some countries giving time is a lovely thing to do. In some countries I've worked, giving time as a volunteer is not a nice thing to do. Lots of post-communist countries, and if you live there, you remember this. Being a volunteer really wasn't that nice, because being a volunteer meant that you had to, not could, had to show up as a volunteer to do community work. With time, I mean people who do that with a heart full of love for your organization or your cause, and they do that because they want to. So they give time, volunteers. This is a very, very valuable gift. It's a golden gift. Another one is network. Sometimes very busy people, like company directors, wealthy individuals, they have a lot of network and they know other companies, they know other major donors. So for people to give you their network, open their contact book, that's a golden gift. And this last one is probably the most important, is a voice, influence. You can ask people to lobby on your account. Sometimes you want to change the world, like in human rights, making sure that the rights of people are defended, and you need the voice of a lot of other people to make sure that there is a lot of noise, really. So having a voice and having lots of voices on your behalf is an important gift. Sometimes that's also the entrance to becoming a donor. Sometimes people who are your activists, people who go out there on your behalf, people you can call ambassadors, those people who have a voice, who speak on your behalf, that is a golden gift. They give you something. Like I said, the organization needs to be ready. So make sure that your organization understands a little bit about fundraising. So they're ready, that if somebody picks up the phone and say, I was thinking of giving you a gift, that the receptionist or the person who picks up the phone doesn't say, I'm not sure how to do that. Could you ring back later? That's not good. So make sure the organization is ready. Right, in fundraising, we talk a lot about the bridge. And again, we'll talk about that later if we talk about techniques, but the bridge is an important thing. The bridge is what you and a donor connect. That could be an individual, that could be a company, it could be a wealthy individual, it could be a government or a trust or foundation. What is the bridge between you and them? Why would they give money? Do they have interest in your organization? Have they have a background and history in your organization? Do they have an affinity with your organization? Have they ever given to your organization? So the bridge between you and the donor is crucial. And if there isn't a bridge, you can create a bridge, but that's hard work and it takes time and money. So the warm donors, the people who might give you money, are people where there is more or less a natural fit, a bridge. We'll talk a little bit more about a case for support, and then we move on to the second module. A case for support in fundraising is the heart of everything you do. A case for support is why we are here, why we need your money. A case for support has 4 things. It has a need, a solution, your uniqueness, and lastly, a call to action. I'll write it down because I'm a bit worried that, oh, you'll see it in mirror image, of course.
I'll write it down. It's all good.
Yeah, thank you very much. Wonderful. The need. Okay, 4 things. The need, the solution, your uniqueness, and a call to action. The need is that you define what the problem is. So 6 million children are going to bed hungry. That is a problem. In my region, there is no water. That is a problem. So define the problem. You need to quantify it. So in my region is no water is probably not best, because you'll need to say this is the region and this is why there is no water, but make it a problem. Look at it from all angles, describe it, make it do 3 things. You must have feelings for it, thinking and doing. So feeling is, in my region is no water. People need to walk 50 miles to get a liter of water. That is all a problem. You know what I mean? You need to describe it from all angles. So that's the need. The need could be also where you think something. There, on average, there live 1 million people in my region, and they need about 20 million liters of water to survive. And there isn't no water. So that's, you describe the problem in feelings, being thirsty, thinking 1 million people need 50 million liters of water. So that's the more statistical part of it. So that's the problem. You describe the problem from all angles. This is how it looks like. These are the statistics. This is what it means on a daily level for Mrs. So-and-so, the problem. And then you describe the second part, that is the solution. We have the solution. We can make it happen. We fight poverty in this way. That could be anything. That this is the problem, this is the solution. It's simple. It depends what your organization is and what they fight for. But 6 million children in poverty, this is the solution. We make sure that there is education, there is a food program, and there is support for mothers. Is it a solution? So this is the problem, this is the solution. Okay, if I'm a donor and I hear a problem and a solution, I'll go to sleep and I'm thinking, right, you're doing the right thing, well done. So that's not enough. If I'm a donor, I'm thinking, this is the problem, this is the solution. I need to know, why would I give money to you? Because there are other organizations who might do the same thing or similar things. So I want to know that you're special, that you're unique, that you're credible, and that I can trust you. So the third thing is your uniqueness. That could be, we're in business for over 100 of years. We're the only organization who can provide irrigation systems to these fields. We're headed by the founder of, there's a celebrity connected to us. Anything that makes you special. So the first thing is the problem. The second thing is the solution. The third thing is you as an organization. Why are you unique? Why are you worthy of my money if I'm a donor? Okay, if I'm a donor, I'm thinking, okay, so there's a problem, there's a solution. They are a very good organization because, yeah, they've been in business for a long time or whatever. Again, I will go to sleep. I'm thinking they're doing the right thing. The world is good. I can go to sleep. So the fourth and most important thing is a call to action. So the first is a problem. The second is a need. Sorry, the first is a need. The second is a solution. The third is your uniqueness. And the fourth is a call to action. Why would this donor give? So 6 million children are dying or hungry. The solution is we'll do education and a food program. We're unique because we've been in business for the last 100 years. And this is where it comes. You can be part of this. Give us your money and we can do this for the next 100 of years. A call to action, and make that as simple as possible. So the donor will feel there is indeed a great need. There is, thank you, a solution. There is an organization who can help deliver that solution. All they need is my money. All they need is my services. All they need is my voice, my influence, my network. They need something. And I can do that. So I can be part of it. This is what they call the case for support. And it's really important. So if you're listening to this webinar, think hard of what really is the problem that you're trying to address, the solution that you have found for it, your vision, how will it be fixed, why you are unique, and why a donor would give you money and nobody else. And the fourth, when, how. How can a donor be part of it? How can they join? This is the most important thing. And please have a look at the big charities that are on the internet. They're all over. And if you just for the to see if I'm right, look at their website and see if they define the problem very well, the need. See if they define the solution very well. Because often some organizations, although they're big, they don't have it defined that well. But go and have a look and see these 4 things on websites of big charities, you know. And the last thing is a principle of fundraising is 2 words. Who knows what it is? Please start typing now so Michelle can see it. There's 2 words are most important in fundraising. If all else fails, these 2 words are the thing. You got anything, Michelle?
Not yet, but I think there's a slight delay. I thought while we wait for people to answer, I could ask you a question.
Yes.
How long should the case for support be if it's in written form?
That's a very good question. Yes. I've seen cases for support that is 1 page. And that's what I like best. That works best. It really does. Because if you get longer, it becomes full of jargon and full of complicated things. People nowadays don't want to read half a book before they understand what you're doing. So I would say 1 page. Make it as short as possible, and you'll see that will be really, really difficult. But 1 page should be enough. Did you find anything?
Okay, I've had 2 people submit their 2 words, their principles, 2 words. One
Yes.
says thank you, and another says this is good. But I'm not sure if he was answering your question or if he was just saying, Alan was just saying the webinar is good. But Juliet says thank you. Is that the answer?
That is the answer. Juliet, you're a star. You're the star fundraiser of the day. It is indeed these 2 words. It is because a donor wants to feel thanked for something they've given freely and get nothing in return for except for knowing that they're part of a better world. But it's also for us as fundraisers the entrance to a next ask. So if people have given something, you say thank you, to nurture the relationship, to keep them close, to say wonderful that you're part and that you're joining us. And let me take you by the hand because we got something else to show you. So thank you is not only thanking you, it's also the step to the next ask. Okay, see, I've got something new on. It's because we're starting the 2nd module. I'm going to do this a little faster because I'm... Right, we're going to talk about research. What I'm going to do, and see if I can do this in 5 to 7 minutes, talking about research, because research is really the core of all your fundraising. Half of you said that they're starting from scratch, and this is where you start. You start at researching. So researching means that you're looking inwards and outwards. You're looking inwards at who you are, what your case for support is, why you are here, and what the problem is, what your solution is. You're looking inwards. What do we have already that we can sell, that we can show to the world? And you're looking outwards. What does the market look like? It's an ongoing process. So don't think you start with research and then it's the end. No, it's an ongoing process. It becomes part. I tell you, my friends and family, they think I'm a bit weird because I'm scouring all the time. All my waking time, I'm looking. What does Coca-Cola does? How do they market their new product? Can we use that technique? How is the other charity in my town doing? Why are they so successful? Are they successful? Can I find out how much they raised with that campaign? So all the time you're looking at others, what they do, and if you can use it for your own. So research is absolutely an ongoing process. You keep looking at if you are, as an organization, a fundable organization. So that's what I mean with looking inwards. Are we likable? Are we clear in what we're doing? How does our website look like? How does our communication tool look like? What's happening on Facebook? Is anybody twittering for us? Are we likable? Will people like us? Are we trustworthy? Will people give their money to us? Are we credible? Do they feel that we deliver our promises? Are we still a nice organization, attractive? And of course, you research your donors, the opportunities. What kind of donors are there? Like, what do you mean with donors? Donors could be individuals. That could be your neighbors. It could also be the suppliers of your organization. People who deliver the paper, people who make sure that there's coffee or tea or drink in the office. It could be people in the field who deliver some of the products you're using in your programs. The suppliers, the companies that work with you and earn money because you are there. They could be a donor, even if it's once a year, and give you an end of year present. If only that you ask them. But then look at the bigger landscape, look at International Trust and Foundation. We'll talk about that later and how to do that. Look at government grants. That could be local, that could be national, but it could also be international. That's a whole different ball game, but there's a lot of money going on. Like I said, the world is full of money. It's our task as fundraisers to direct that money to make the world a better place. That's why I think fundraising is a fun thing to do. But like the Robin Hoods of this world. Another group we'll talk about later is wealthy individuals, major donors. I call them wealthy individuals until they've given, and then I call them major donors. It's easy between you and me. Of course, I won't use these words with them. How do you find them? How do you find donors? In general, you find donors because you have a dream, because you have a vision. You are having the solution to a problem. You are unique, and you have a call to action. That's how you find them. You find them because you are worthy of their money. So you find them by referral. You have friends, you have family, you have business partners, there's people in your town, there are neighbors, there are people you've met at events. By referral, you tell everybody about your vision, your dream. You don't say we need your money, you tell them that you are going to make the world a better place. You are going to make a real change. And yes, it needs money, but remember the other golden gifts. It might be time, it might be their network. You tell people that you need them. So there's an active way and a passive way. A passive way is what I just explained. You just tell the world we need your money. That means also not only verbally, because that would not reach so many people, but you can do that on your website, you can do that in your Twitter, you can use that in Facebook or any kind of other networking website you're on. We are keen to make a difference. Join us. That's a passive way. You're, as it were, fishing and hoping a fish will bite. That's a passive way. An active way would be that you would tell people, that you would have a brochure that you give out, that you would call them, that you go and see them, especially if you're starting from scratch. That could be a really good way. Remember, if you're starting from scratch, you need some kind of investment in the organization. So not necessarily to make your dream come true, but to have the vehicle to make that dream come true. So you might need an investment there. And again, tell people that you're going to make a real difference. Tell companies, tell other people. That's how you find the donors. Another way of finding donors is look at what the competitors are doing. If there is another NGO in your region that's doing not the same but something similar, look at who their donors is. Who is interested in that kind of cause? What exactly? Who are they? Is it a trusted foundation? Is it a family firm? Is it a company? Or is it just a group of people who've done something? Who are the funders of your competitors? Looking at creating what I call an army of lovers. So you'll make sure that you talk to a lot of people and they become ambassadors. They become volunteers. They become activists. They will say, wow, this organization I'm involved with, they will do wonderful work. Why don't you give them a call, because they might need you. So to find them in general, because we'll talk about the details later, is in an active and passive way. You make sure that you have like a good website, that it's clear that you need money or you need fuel to make that dream come true, and you do it actively by asking lots of people in any kind of way, so they will join your course. We're now looking at like what donors are them and how to find them. We're starting with probably the most difficult group of people, but like I said, there's a lot of money there. These are the institutional donors, the governments. Usually, funnily enough, they have an I, A, or D in the name because it's international from I, D from develop in some kind of way, A from agency, and then something about their country. So Danida, for instance, is the Danish one. Danida. There you go. There's an I and an A and a D from Danish development. Others are like USA, BUSA, SIDA, YIDA from Japan. Look for them. Don't think, oh wow, these big institutions, they won't be interested in a small organization like me. They might, because often the big government institutional donors, they have what they call seed money, and they will they usually have a lot of money for big organizations and credible organization. But if you're starting from scratch, you have a hard time being credible and trustworthy because nobody knows you. You might be able to apply for their seed money. So institutional donors, go there. Look for the country, look for every country, and the rich countries, obviously, that is North America, Europe, Japan, China is coming, India is coming up. Look at those countries and look at the government websites. That's usually your first port of call. It's a large grant, generally. Seed money is often not a large grant, but if you're starting from scratch, anything can be large. There's reporting requirements that might be a little bit difficult, but if you take it step by step, you'll be fine. And then what's really important with any kind of donor, but in particular with institutions, is just give them a call. Just give them a call. It might cost you $10, but why not? Just give them a call. Now, in a world where everything is done online, a real person on the phone helps. So start from scratch, build that relationship, see if you can find somebody you can send a draft version of your application so they will review it. Build that relationship because behind every big donor there is a real person with a heart. Find that person. Trust and foundations in country, I don't have any knowledge because there's so many countries in the world, but so I can't help you there. But international trust and foundations, the big ones are in the US and in the UK. In the UK, there's an organization called the Directory of Social Change, and they have a database called Trust Funding. And Trust Funding, www.trustfunding.org. Would you type that in, Michelle, please? Thank you. That is a website with a database, and they have all the trusts and foundations in the United Kingdom on it. You need to pay for it, but sometimes you can share that payment. So if you find 2, 3, 4, 10 other organizations, small organizations, together you pay for it, you get one password, and together you can do all the searches in the world. So although it costs a little bit of money, it's not that expensive actually, and you can cancel it every month. You find all the trusts and foundations that there are in the UK. Trustfunder.org. The United States has the best one I found is called Foundation Center. The Foundation Center, .org again, Foundation Center. Again, it's a database, so it helps. You just type in your cause, you type in your country, and see if they give internationally. Again, it costs money, but if you can find a little bit of money from a family and friends, or join up with 2, 3, 5, 10 other small organizations, you pay that money and you have access to the database of all the international American trusts and foundations. There's one stipulation, and that's kind of complicated is that some of the American ones have a non-solicitation clause. That means that you can't just send them a letter and say, we want money for this project. They don't want that anymore. It happened that they got too many applications. There is a way around it. Again, calling them. Just call them. Just make sure that you stand out. Companies. So researching companies might not be easy, but remember what I said earlier. Look at your suppliers. Look at the suppliers of your own family. Look at the suppliers of your neighborhood where you have your offices. Look at a company who works there. See if there's a bridge, a natural fit with another company of your course. If you're working in agriculture, as you all do, then maybe there is the company who provides the seeds, the company who provides the material, the company who provides all the tools, that it has a natural fit with what you do. So research them, see who they are, look if they have some kind of corporate responsibility policy, if they give to other charities. And if they do, they might have a warm heart for you too. With companies, you need to ask yourself what you can offer a company. We'll discuss that later if we talk about fundraising from the few. But companies, you really have to think as a company and see if you can create a win-win situation. Wealthy individuals. Research for wealthy individuals is depending on where you are, really. It's funny because wealthy individuals in the United States and the United Kingdom are visible. You see them in the press, you see them in magazines, you see them. And you also hear that they have given money to a good cause. In Holland, it's totally different. If you have money in Holland, you need to be, well, not really ashamed about it, but a little embarrassed. So you still cycle to work, to Amsterdam, to Berlin, even Germany is the same thing. You just cycle to work and you might have a few businesses. You might have a summer house in Sweden and you might have a yacht in the harbor in France, but really it doesn't look as if you're a wealthy individual. So finding we're talking about research here, right? Finding the wealthy individuals is a lot of looking at the press, looking at asking around, looking at the other funders. Is there some organizations have an annual report, and in the back of the annual report they mention that the family of Van Hoogstraten has given them a large donation. Okay, so that's interesting. It's a lovely family who thinks that with their money they can make the world a better place. So they're open to give to another charity. Maybe it's yours. So wealthy individuals, two things. Don't think that in your country you're a poor country and you don't have any wealthy individuals. Every country has them. Every country has them. It's just about finding them and finding that bridge between you and them. You will then find the entrance. You will find that bridge. Every country has them. If you start looking for them, you'll find them. Let's move on to fundraising from the many. Is there any questions?
There are indeed.
Good.
I've got 2 questions and one additional one from me. So the first question is from Alessia. She asks, do you think that fundraising has to deal with the fashion of the moment, so what's popular in funding right now, or rather the question that's more attractive in a very historical context?
Fundraising has been around always, so no. Fundraising itself, making the world a better place, joining a group and making that happen and giving money to it, that's like from all the times. But there are fashions, you're right about that. There are fashions in different countries and different cultures. In the US and the UK, it's very fashionable to climb up a mountain and ask people to sponsor you every step. In some countries that would not work, but in other countries, I've seen, for instance, radio stations. There was one, for instance, a radio station who would, because traditionally a radio station you don't necessarily see anything, but they would be in the center of a big the capital of your country, and they would be transmitting radio from there, and you can go and visit them and sponsor every minute or every hour, and businesses would support, and so it would be like a campaign. So yes, there are fashions. In the last 10 years, for instance, we've seen the online fundraising and mobile fundraising has taken a huge uplift. So yes, the techniques have a fashion. That's right. You're often the best way. My advice to you would be is don't be the first one. Look at how the bigger NGOs, the international NGOs are doing, Greenpeace, UNICEF. Are they taking on something new? How does it work for them? Were they successful? Look very closely, see if you can find somebody on the inside to give really to learn from their experience, and then be the second one. So you'll be still innovative, you still be new, you still be fashionable, but you can learn from the big ones who have invested money usually in it.
Great, thank you. And that's a really nice segue into Alan's question, which was quite specifically focused on Kenya. He said there is an online fundraising platform called mchanga.com. How can we take this chance and look for donors via such a platform?
Yeah, an online platform that really is fundraising from the many. You want a lot of people to give money to this online platform to do something. It's a bit related to what I just mentioned, where people walk, swim, climb, run for charity. So if what you can do is organize something like that. It doesn't necessarily need a lot of work, but if there is something fashionable outdoor sport that you can get sponsorship from, this online platform is a very nice and quick and easy way for people to donate. Often, depending on your country's banking and financial system, it might not be so easy to give money if it's not in cash. Cash money is always easy, but then you end up with a lot of coins and banknotes. Getting online money, the platforms use the platforms. One word of warning: ask their percentage. Find out how much they want from you to do the transferals. So sometimes that's a lot of money. I've heard 3 to 10%. 10% is a lot, and more than 10% is a ripoff. So yes, if they want less than 10%, you have to live with them. They have to feed their children too, so that's fine. But the percentage is important.
Thanks, Jolan. And last question is from me. You were talking about creating bridges between, yourself as someone looking for funds and an organisation that has funds to give, or an individual. Can you give us an example of where you specifically helped an organisation create an unlikely bridge, perhaps? Just to give us an example of how you might do that.
Yes, these bridges are amazing. The best example, the most funny example, is that I worked for a theatre in London, and we've been talking to a company who I knew they had given to charity, who I knew they had a marketing budget that would be available for a charity. But they kept saying, "Oh, we want to talk to you again, and can the CEO come, and the program manager?" And it just took too long. Anyway, I invited them to the theater, and at the time there was a Peter Pan story on stage. So I showed him on stage, and I showed him behind the stage and all the dressing rooms. And then he looked up. He was standing in the middle of the stage, and he looked up and he said, "Wow, so Peter Pan can fly." I said, "Well, yes, that's the story." And he said, "So how does that work?" "I've always wanted to fly," he said. He dreamed. So we, with the whole team, got him in this Peter Pan costume. Not the costume, but the ropes. And he swung like as if he was Peter Pan on the stage. And we had such a giggle and such a good time. And later he said, wow, I can see how a theatre like this is really, really worthy of my money. And he gave us a large donation. So that was a bit of an unlikely bridge, but it's just an example how do not hold back with donors. Just see where their passion lies. Find out what they need. Find out who they are and what makes them tick, what makes them open up. And then everything else is easy.
Awesome answer. Thanks. We don't have any further questions at this moment, but maybe as we go on. Thanks.
Good. We don't have that much time anymore, Michelle. Is that right?
I've got on my clock about 25 minutes.
Good, good. So what we'll do is we'll do fundraising from the few and fundraising from the many in the next 20 minutes, so 10 minutes each. Let me put on another t-shirt so you can see mine again. This is me. Okay, let's talk about fundraising from the many. Fundraising from the many is wealthy individuals, trusts and foundations, corporate donors, things like that. Now, what's typical with fundraising from the many is it is about building a relationship with these people. That's different than fundraising from the many. The few people giving a lot of money, you need to build that relationship. There are some industry standards about how long it takes from when you start fundraising, when the money is coming in, and that was one of the questions. So just to let you know, if on average, if you start with direct marketing, so that could be direct mail, it could be an online request with an email, it takes some time to prepare that. You need some time for the donors to come back. On average, it takes 2 years. So if you start now, you plan, you research your donors, you make sure that you have all the techniques and all the logistics in place, you send out your ask and the money comes back. That on average, 1 year to 2 years. It also needs a little bit of an investment, so that's why it takes money. It takes a while for it to come back. So maybe the money comes in, but then it will pay for the cost you had to set it all up. So with wealthy individuals, it takes about 2 years to nurture that relationship, for them to transfer the money. It takes 2 years. You might think that's a long time, but hopefully at the end of those 2 years, you'll get a large donation. In those 2 years, you do a lot of things to nurture that relationship, and we'll come to that. Companies, 1 to 2 years. Could be a little bit faster, because sometimes companies give you money from a philanthropic point of view, and that could be just money. If they give you money from a marketing point of view, that could be 2 years, because they plan, like you and I do, plan 5 years ahead. So they might say, we don't have money yet, but next year we will. So that will take 1 to 2 years. Grant making, trust and foundations, that on average does take 2 years too, because you need to research them, see what their grant cycle is, when you can apply, when the board or the panel comes together to decide, and then to transfer the money. So that takes 1 to 2 years too. Just to give you an example, legacies, for instance. Legacies is when people die, some of their estate will go to a good cause. That, if you start fundraising for that now, passively, a little actively, that will take 7 years. It makes sense. People, unfortunately, need to die for that. So it all takes time. The researching needs time, the planning needs time, and then the execution, the implementation takes time. So let's talk a little bit about fundraising from the many. Remember, fundraising from the many could be wealthy individuals, companies, trusts and foundations, and institutions. Let's talk about major donors, wealthy individuals. They're all different. They could be old money, what we call old money. It could be a family who have inherited a lot of money years after years after years. Traditionally, those people if they give to charity, they have their own courses. I've worked with wealthy individuals who do that every year at the end of the year. So they sit over Christmas dinner or Hanukkah or whatever their belief system is, and they think, right, let's give a little bit of money to a good cause. That's very difficult to influence, and they will know your good cause because you've made some noise in the previous year. You've been in the press, they've seen your website, somebody else mentioned you to them, so that's a networking thing, and then they will give. Old families, old money as we call it, traditionally are hard to break into, but once you have their attention, once you have that relationship, it usually pays off. Now there's new money. There's usually people who made money through a business, and so there is an overlap with an investment. Venture philanthropists, we call them. These people are business people. They want to see your financial forecast. They want to see that you're, as a charity, as an organization, you are financially sound. They check you out in that way. And they want to see your business plans, and they want to make sure that their money that you deliver on your promises. So where old money might want to hear some stories, they might want to see a picture of what happened with their money. New money want to see a forecast, and they want to see if you delivered on your impact. They want to see impact. They want to see that something happened. Some people are wealthy individuals not because they're rich. I've worked for an organization where, for instance, where I researched the current wealthy individuals, the current major donors. And it turned out to be a person who was a plumber. This plumber had traveled the world and had seen in Vietnam how women suffered with childbirth, and lots of their children died in childbirth. And this plumber came home and it looked on the internet and found an organization a charity who would support women in Vietnam. And every month, 1/3 of his income was transferred to this organization. And he did that year in, year out. So for this organization, that was a lot of money because it came in every month, every year. And although this plumber was not a wealthy person, he was passionate about what happened in Vietnam. So sometimes we think of wealthy individuals, people who are very, very rich. But sometimes it needs a very passionate person to give you a lot of money, not because they're rich, but because they feel that half their income should go somewhere. So that's an unusual one, but don't discard them. These people are important. Another thing that's really important is that there is liquid money and not liquid money. I'm sure bank people have a very fancy word for it, but it really means that I've talked to wealthy individuals and they said, oh, I'd love to give you money, but I've just bought a new business in South Africa, and my wife has bought a yacht and a house in Chicago and California. So basically, I have no money. Liquid money, there's not a lot of people, not a lot of wealthy people who just have $100,000 on the bank or $500,000 in the bank. They can just transfer. Everything is tied up in stocks and shares, businesses, stuff like that. So for them to unleash that kind of capital, that might take a while, and it hurts. It hurts them. So remember that when you're looking at wealthy individuals, they might not have this money liquid just to quickly transfer it to your bank account. And another thing that's really important with wealthy individuals, usually wealthy individuals are well connected. Remember the golden gifts? They might give you money, but ask for their network too. If they are passionate about what you do, ask them who else they know and if they would introduce you to them. So not like, oh, I know all these people, here's their telephone number. No, you need them to introduce you to it. So they need to ring their friend Mr. Jones and say, Mr. Jones, listen, I've just given $500,000 to this lovely, wonderful charity who's doing so much good work. Can I come with them to see you? That's the only way to do, because otherwise, Mr. Jones, if you ring Mr. Jones and says, oh, I have your telephone number of somebody, they will put down the phone. They don't know you. Wealthy individuals. How do you find them? Map your network. Find out who you know. In the United Kingdom, they have a saying, you are 6 times removed from the Queen. And if you look at your network, you will find somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows this person. Maybe not in your network, but maybe your family, your friends, the companies that supply your work. Map your network. And it's very easy to do, really. You just have you in the middle, and then you think of who you worked for, who lives in your neighborhood, who your children go to school with. And so you then map it all. Just map it. And maybe your children go to school with Mrs. Jones, and Mrs. Jones is just a lovely friend, but Mrs. Jones's husband works for a company and he's head of team together, and the other head of team in that same company is connected to, you with me? You map your network, and this is how you do it. So you make little circles, the little circles, the little circles. And that's how you find these wealthy individuals. Or an introduction. Remember, an introduction needs to be made by somebody for you. Find a commonality, find that bridge. Maybe it's a joint interest, maybe your children and their children, maybe they use the same business, there is a loyalty for a group or an interest, a country. Usually in major donors, they say there needs to be a linkage, an interest, and an ability. Again, the ability refers to an ability to give, really. Sometimes I've talked to wealthy individuals and said, I've just started a new venture with my business and all my saving is gone in a new venture in my business. I have no money. So don't think that immediately wealthy individuals have a lot of money. Major donor development, nurturing that relationship. Remember, you secure a major donor, not a major gift. It is about the relationship. Because if you do it well and you keep that relationship healthy and ongoing in a little circle, you can ask them for money again and again. They become your ambassadors. They will open their network for you. They will give you their time. They will introduce you. So secure the major donor, not the major gift. It's not about the money. Seek out a beneficial partnership with them. How can you give them what they need? What's their motivation to give money to you? And make sure that you deliver on that promise. If they are passionate, if they are people who understand statistics, report back in statistics. This is the amount of people we've helped. This is the real difference we've made. If there are people who, like me, who like stories and images and pictures, make sure that the impact is measured by a personal story, what the impact has made for somebody. So report back and see what their motivation is, and then report back in the same way. Don't waste your time. If you feel that you're developing a relationship that's not going anywhere, then try to ease out of it, because your time is money too. So make sure that you invest a lot of time in your best prospects. Now let's look at companies. How do you do that? Companies is more of a business deal. what do they need, where are they going, and what is it that you can offer them to help them. In exchange, they will fund your project. So think of what they need. Think of what you can offer. Maybe they want the name of your organization on their new product to give them their products a sort of good feeling about it. It's called cause-related marketing. For instance, we donate $10 for every sale we do, or this is how, and it's called brand transfer. Your brand of your organization and the brand of this business will join together on package of a product or on a service. Every time we do something for you as a company, we will give an amount of money to this charity. Maybe you have a network, a venue for networking. Maybe you, in your organization, in your office, in programs, maybe there is a venue where these companies can come and network. They can invite their the businesses, their customers, or their other businesses they work with. It doesn't necessarily need to be a fancy place. Sometimes I've worked with organizations and the programs had a kindergarten or an art school. For businesses, that's an interesting end of year. Let's get together, have a drink. That's an interesting one. They could hire a big hotel, of course, but just to do it at the kindergarten they support through the year, for them is interesting. So maybe you have a venue you can offer them. For most businesses, it's important that their employees are motivated and stay with them for a long time. So employee fundraising, maybe the employees want to know that some of the profit of their employer will go to a good cause, and then they will do something too. They will, on Friday, they will dress down, as they call it. They will not come in their beautiful suits and dresses, but they'll come in pajamas and have fun. But at the same time, they're raising money from friends and family for your cause. Just think of if you have donors, and because your donors for a company, for a business, they have customers, and maybe their customers can become donors, and maybe your donors can become customers. See, there's a lot you can give as a charity. So with companies, it's much more of a business deal. Think of creating a win-win situation. Understand what they need and see if you can give it to them with not too much problems, and then give something, then they will give something in return. Grant givers, that could be a foundation, but could also be a government grant. They need projects. You need to make little packages of what you do, put a ribbon around it, and give that as a project to a grant giver. That could be an international foundation, that could be a trust, that could be a local grant. Develop the concept of a concept note. It's called this is what we do. Wrap it up, make sure it's clear. Sometimes it needs you need to look at the guidelines for them, the thematic courses they need. Remember always to say thank you. And with grant givers, there's one big hurdle you'll have to take. Often it takes a database for you to apply, especially the initial ones. So you go into a database, you create a password, and then there comes the problem. You need to put down your case for support, or what you do, your mission, your vision, in 200 words, in 500 words, and you can't use 510 words. Be prepared to narrow it all down and do it and submit it to your grant proposal to a database. The best way to look at it is that you have questions like, what do you plan to do? Why do you do that? So you need a problem and a solution. When do you do it? This is how long it will take us to do that. How does the achievement look like? This is how many people we've helped. This is Maria, who's been helped by our charity. How much does it cost? And often funders, especially great funders like major donors, both wealthy individuals, companies, grant givers, they want to know who else is funding. And that's important because sometimes wealthy individuals will say, like, to another one, listen, I funded 25% of this program and I'm so keen that it will happen. Could you do another 25%? And we'll find the other two. So the percentage of their funding. Make it interesting. That's really key. And I've done this. See, you might send in a grant proposal, or you might talk to a business, and this is how it will look like. They get 500, like all these pasta things, 500 million grant proposals, requests for money, whatever, and they're overwhelmed by it. And this is how yours looks. See? You need to stand out. Yours need to be different. And this is, I can't tell you how to do that. I just tell you that you need to do it. Because wealthy individuals, trust and foundations, companies get a lot of requests. You need to stand out. You need to be this one. If you can do that. How do you do that? By phoning, making sure they have a face to it. How do you do that? By having a story, an image. How do you do that? By making sure that your grant proposal is hand delivered and you have a cup of tea with the receptionist and make sure that she knows that it's going somewhere. Stand out. Make yours different. Make yours noticed. That's how you get there. Michelle, how are we doing?
Good. We have a couple of questions, Jolan, for you. The first one is from Machteld. I think it would be a common question amongst everyone. How do you balance nudging too passively, but not sounding like a beggar or over, I don't know, overflowing them, she says, asking too much or being too active? How do you make that balance?
Yes, it's a good one. I remember my mother had a great problem with saying my daughter is a fundraiser. She said to her friends, they were all elderly, she says, my daughter begs for money. This is fundraising is not really a profession. How do you do that? You share a dream. You don't necessarily always talk about money. I've worked with wealthy individuals. We don't talk about money. We talk about the difference we can make. We talk about the projects. We talk about statistics in the project. I show them pictures. I tell them stories. This is what we're doing. This is how wonderful the world could look like if only you would join us in making that happen. So if you sound like a beggar if you say, we need your $500,000. Can you give us $500,000? Or can you give us $10? That's a beggar. A fundraiser says, we can make the world a better place. You and me together. That's a fundraiser. Any other questions? I hope that helps.
Great. And there was another question from Vishnu saying, a case for support should have a unique solution for the problem to attract the donor, as you mentioned earlier. How do we make it unique?
Yes. You make it unique where you look at your competition. Who else is addressing this problem? That could even be a company. Who else is addressing the problem? And then you look at why you are special about it. That could be in many ways. For instance, you have an innovative solution to a problem. Your solution is different and better. and you prove it with statistics, with numbers, you prove it. You're unique. Your solution is different. You are a credible organization. You can show people you're very upfront about where the money goes to. You're a charity. You've been in business for a long time. Your founder is special. It's a celebrity, or it is a sound businessman who's done other things, or the uniqueness is important, because in this, the world is one big marketplace and the money of people can go anywhere. So yes, you have to make it unique. Yes, that's what I can say.
Great, thanks, Jolan. I think it's one of those, it's a good question to start thinking about. So thank you for starting that conversation, that question. We have 4 more minutes. I don't know if you have time very quickly to go into the strategy development stuff, or if you think we just take any further questions and wrap up. What's your thinking?
I think what I'd like to do in these few questions is just remember the case for support, because that's at the heart. If you go and talk to somebody, you need to sort of know what to say. That one page is really important. All fundraising is a cycle. All fundraising is a cycle. You ask for money, you show your passion, you show what you can do with the money, they will give you the money, you thank them and say, we can do more of it. So it becomes a cycle. You do that online, offline, direct marketing, with direct mail. You can do that in any kind of way, but make sure it's a cycle. Make sure that after people have given you the money, you keep that relationship warm. Why? Because A, it makes them feel good, and that's after all why they give you money. But B, more importantly, they will give you regularly, or they give you more, or they might leave you something in their will when they pass away. So make sure it's always a circle. Look at the people who've given you money in the past, and maybe you haven't done that very well, and you haven't made that circle very round. These people we call lapsed donors. These lapsed donors are often the best way to start again. Just nurture that relationship, rekindle the friendship, and make sure that they are part of the environment of your organization. And that's also the core of the strategy plan. Where are we going, and how can we keep donors and make sure that we get more and more donors? Often your current donors might help you find more donors or members, or yeah. The strategy plan, traditionally you do it for 3 years. You can do it for 5 years, but that's a bit long. You break it down, step 1, step 2. You look at where you need an investment. You need an investment in time. You need an investment in people. You need an investment in money. That's where you go. First year you detailed, but then you also look at the market and how it changes. So year 2 could be a little bit more diffuse. Year 3, as long as you know where you're going in the long run, because that's the vision, that's where you need to go, and that's what you're selling in marketing terms. So that's how you look at a strategy plan. The first donors are what we call low-hanging fruit. Again, ask around and look at what you have as an organization, what you've already done, and what is a very easy and natural fit for somebody, for a donor. There is, in every organization, is low-hanging fruit. Sometimes if you worked for an organization for a while, you don't see it very well. Ask your best friend to look at what you do, explain it, and then ask them where they see the best opportunity, the fastest way to get some money in. Often they will know, or if you have them, a fundraiser, a peer, a fundraiser for another organization. Buy them a drink and say, this is who we are. Where would you start? What do you think is our low-hanging fruit?
Thanks, Jolan. We have one more question coming from M. Dowsing. I've just asked him to be, or her, to be a little bit more specific with their question. While I'm waiting for that clarification, I did want to ask you about the kind of current climate with international donors, particularly because where I come from, I've been hearing a lot about social enterprises being the way forward really for international charities, meaning that perhaps charities will donate some small startup funding, but they're really expecting organisations to become self-sufficient, maybe starting up their own business arm that then funds their other activities. How is that happening in your mind? And if so, how is that changing the way we see traditional donors and traditional fundraising?
Yes, that is absolutely happening. The good thing is that most charities always had some kind of earned income. Maybe they were selling Christmas cards or T-shirts, or some earned income was always there. There's a word of caution, because after all, we're charities, we're not businesses. So I've seen some charities becoming it's a diffuse organization between a company and a charity. Traditionally, a company makes profit, and the profit goes to the stakeholders, the shareholders. Traditionally, a charity gets money from donors and does good work with it. The earned income, the ventures, the social enterprises are more in the middle, where it's a business, it makes a profit, and the profit goes to the good cause. I've worked with an HIV charity in Pakistan. They have huge tomato fields, and the people who are still able to do, they work in the fields, and the profit will go to people who are HIV positive and sometimes are also very ill. So it's an organization that feeds itself, as it were. That absolutely is happening all over the world. What's also happening, and that I think is so exciting, that old school fundraising charity world was that Europe and Northern America would raise funds in their own region, and then the funds will drip down in what we call the Global South. And more, the Global South is fundraising themselves. And I think it's a wonderful, wonderful development, where if I can send a funding application to the Ford Foundation in the United States, somebody in Kenya can do that. Somebody in South Africa can do that. Somebody in Vietnam can do that. It's not rocket science. So I think fundraising for themselves is start real fundraising in country. It happens more and more, and it's wonderful. So that's another development that's happening.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And our last question to wrap us up today. So it's M. Dowsing asking, with startups and small organisations, typically a lot of YPARD members are small volunteer-run groups, maybe groups of individuals even. How might they make a case slightly differently to a big organisation in a way that's perhaps a bit different and more innovative to get funds? Is there a different type of strategy they might use?
Do you mean it's for a small organisation, so a grassroots organisation?
That's right. So I guess this is being asked in the context of, say, I'm a YPARD country representative. You know, I'm not asking for funds for YPARD as an organisation, but for my sort of small country activities potentially. So, you know, you're not making an organisational case, but you're making a case from a small startup or a small sort of group or collective point of view. And how might that differ?
And where the first port of call is for funding?
Well, he was asking how might they make funding cases differently to big organisations, or what might be the best approach that those groups would take? Is it different to what how you would approach it if you're a more formalised big organisation?
Yes, I think the best way to look at it is look at your assets. Now, you might think we have nothing and we need everything, but you do have assets. Every organization's assets. If you're volunteer-led, then your volunteers are your assets. Then look at their network and see if you can map it, like in the way I just showed you with all the mapping their network, see if they have entrances to companies, wealthy individuals, people who would invest in the organization to make sure that you become a real fundraising organization. So that's what we call core interest money. So you give money to an organization, not to the program. And from there you can start. It really depends on what you have in terms of assets. Maybe there is a bit of land you have, maybe there is a building you have, maybe there is something you can not give, but for instance, if you have a building, however small it is or however not representative it is, a company might want to have their annual shareholder meeting there because it makes them look good. So look at your assets, see what you have, and also look at your previous funders. If in the last 10 years, did anybody ever give you any money, and can you rekindle that friendship, that partnership? Show them what you've done in the meantime, ask if they want to join you again. That could be grassroots organizations in general. That in itself could be interesting for a funder. Some funders just say we don't go for established organizations anymore. Grassroots, that's the future. We give them seed money and they will flourish. So if you're a small grassroots organization, that in itself could be an attractive proposition to a funder.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jolan, for your wisdom and your time for sharing with us. Before we wrap up, I understand you are going to tell us a little bit about the 2016 fundraising conference that YPARD members are getting a free ticket to, which is great and very generous of the Resource Alliance.
Look at the Resource Alliance website. It's called Fundraising Online, and it's a 2-day fundraising conference with webinars like this one. And it's mainly for online fundraising, so anybody can do it wherever you are, as long as you have access to the internet and a computer. The most amazing, inspiring people come together and will show you how they've done it. They're all hour-long workshops, and you can choose, and it's free. It's usually in May next year, and they haven't set the date. I've asked them this morning, but they haven't yet. But if you look at the website of the Resource Alliance and look for Fundraising Online, and it's for free, just sign up and I'll see you there, because I'll be there.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jolan. And we'll have that on our calendar and make sure everyone from YPARD knows about it for May next year, and you can let us know when the dates are announced. Thank you everyone for participating. Hopefully you've learned something new today, and perhaps, as Jolan said, you've learned something you didn't think you might need, but you might need in a couple of years' time. So I think that's an amazing anecdote to end on, and that's a really great learning for us all, that this stuff is stuff that's going to be useful for you. If it's not today, it will be tomorrow, it will be next year. So keep at it, and we will see you at the next webinar, which will be on social media in a few weeks.
If you want to email me or get in contact, Michelle has my email. So if you want to type it in the box, I'm fine with that, Michelle. Just send me an email if you have more questions. That's absolutely fine. I'm looking forward to hear from you. Bye-bye.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jolan. Bye-bye, everyone.